Hey everybody, welcome to lesson 4. Today we're going to be going over character development, and we're going to be reading the text Lamb to the Slaughter by Roald Dahl. And I'm going to try and make this as quick and concise as possible. We've got quite a few slides to go over, so let's get right to it. So the objective for today is that students will be able to analyze character development in a fiction short story. And also that students will be able to include multiple pieces of evidence, text and paraphrased in written response. So when you're analyzing character development, you want to make sure that when you're doing so, you have evidence to back up, let's say a certain question that's being asked about the character's, personality. So what is character development? Character development is the process and execution of creating a fully rounded, complex, and lifelike character within your fictional writing with the purpose of making readers invested in them and their life or journey. So think of character development like the paper of your book. Without it, you simply don't have a book at all, and you just have a mess of ink smeared between two covers. And I'm sure nobody would want that. So what's the first step to finding character development? Think of the acronym PAIRS. Finding pairs is the first step to defining a character that you'll be following along with in the story. So the first word in the acronym is physical description. What does the character look like? Are they tall? Are they short? Are they skinny? Are they, do they have a particular thing that's unique about them, like a yellow dress, big round glasses, etc. A pertains to action. What is the character doing? Is the character, washing dishes? Is the character reading a book? What are they doing in this particular moment that can basically tell us a lot about who they are as characters? And so I is inner thoughts. What is the character thinking? What is the character thinking in their minds that can also give us an idea as to what kind of person they are, based on the thoughts that they have. So R is reactions. How does the character react in a particular situation? Let's say a situation goes wrong, and how does the character react to this situation? Or do they freak out about it? Are they calm and collected? And I think reactions really show who you are as a person as well. And so S would be speech. What does the character say? How does the character basically go about saying certain words, which can also help us find the sort of character they are? So the basic idea here is that all of these things can really help us find a character, his personality, and basically who they are as people. It all depends on the things that they do, the things that they think, the way they look. I wouldn't say that necessarily describes the character, but a physical description basically helps us know who a character is. So next we have direct and indirect characterization. So direct characterization is the way an author describes a character by his or her descriptions. So let's say an author says, Mr. Richardson is a mean old grump who doesn't like anybody. The author is straight to the point, describing the author as a person. They don't imply anything. Everything that they feel about the character, they put it out there. And so indirect characterization is when the personality of a character is shown through the character's speech, thoughts, actions, and looks. And let's say it's implied in the story that Mr. Richardson would often yell at kids who came near his yard. Then he would proceed to lock himself in his house and watch TV all by himself. Although he's not directly saying that he's a mean old grump, it's implied by his actions and, his speech, when he's yelling at the kids and stuff. So that gives us an example of direct and indirect characterization. And so lastly is character foils. We will contrast between the qualities of the main character and a foil character, which just means a character that shows different qualities than another character. Let's say James is the main character and Jamie is the character foil. So we could say something like, James is introverted He's apathetic, indifferent to what goes on around him, and he mostly finds joy in reading a good book at home. That's just how he is. He's quiet, he likes to keep to himself. And let's say the character foil, the alternative character would be Jamie, basically his polar opposite. Jamie is extroverted, enthusiastic, and always willing to attend social outings with her friends. So what we can see here is that James and Jamie are two completely different people. Although James is the main character of the story, he's completely different from Jamie in all sorts, and this is how we can understand what a character foil is. So we're going to be reading Lamb to the Slaughter by Roald Dahl, and I'll explain to you what these highlights mean after we finish reading the story, once we begin to analyze the character development. So I'll get started. The room was warm and clean, the curtains drawn, the 2 table lamps alight, hers and the only one by the empty chair opposite. On the sideboard behind her, 2 tall glasses, soda water, whiskey, fresh ice cubes in the thermos bucket. Mary Maloney was waiting for her husband to come home from work. Now and again she would glance up at the clock, but without anxiety, merely to please herself with the thought that each minute gone by made it nearer the time when he would come. There was a slow smiling about her, and about everything she did. The drop of a head as she bent over by sewing was curiously tranquil. Her skin, for this was her 6th month with child, had acquired a wonderful translucent quality. The mouth was soft, and the eyes, with their new placid look, seemed larger, darker than before. When the clock said 10 minutes to 5, she began to listen, and a few moments later, punctually as always, she heard the tires on the gravel outside, and the car door slamming, the footsteps passing through the window, and the key turning in the lock. She laid aside her sewing, stood up, and went forward to kiss him as he came in. "Hello, darling," she said. "Hello, darling," he answered. She took his coat and hung it in the closet. Then she walked over and made the drinks, a strongest one for him, a weak one for herself, and soon she was back again in her chair with the sewing, and he in the other, opposite, holding the tall glass with both hands, rocking it so the ice cubes tinkled against the side. For her, this was always a blissful time of day. She knew he didn't want to speak much until the first drink was finished, and she, on the other side, was content to sit quietly, enjoying his company after the long hours in the house. She loved the luxury in the presence of him and to feel almost as sunbather feels in the sun. That warm male glow that came out of him to her when they were alone together. She loved him for the way he sat loosely in a chair, for the way he came in the door or moved slowly across the room with long strides. She loved the intent, far look in his eyes when they rested on her, the funny shape of the mouth, and especially the way he remained silent about his tiredness, sitting still with himself until the whiskey had taken some of it away. "Tired, darling?" "Yes," he said. "I'm tired." And as he spoke, he did an unusual thing. He lifted his glass and drained it in one swallow, although there was still at least half of it left. She wasn't really watching him, but she knew what he had done because she heard the ice cubes falling back against the bottom of the empty glass when he lowered his arm. He paused for a moment, leaning forward in the chair. Then he got up and went slowly over to fetch himself another. "I'll get it," she cried up, jumping up. "Sit down," he said. When he came back, she noticed that the new drink was dark amber with a quantity of whiskey in it. "Darling, shall I get your slippers?" "No." She watched him as he began to sip the dark yellow drink, and she could see little oily swirls in the liquid because it was so strong. "I think it's a shame," she said, "that when a policeman gets to be as senior as you, they keep him walking about on his feet all day long." He didn't answer, so she bent her head again and went on with her sewing, but each time he lifted the drink to his lips, she heard the ice cubes clinking against the side of the glass. "Darling," she said, "would you like me to get you some cheese? I haven't made supper because it's Thursday." "No," he said. "If you're too tired to eat out," she went on, "it's not too late. There's still plenty of meat and stuff in the freezer, and you can have it right here and not even move out of the chair." Her eyes waited on him for an answer, a smile, a little nod, but he made no sign. "Anyway," she went on, "I'll get you some cheese and crackers first." "I don't want it," he said. She moved uneasily in her chair, her eyes still watching his face. "But you must eat. I'll fix it anyway, and then you can have it or not, as you like." She stood up and placed her sewing on the table by the lamp. "Sit down," he said. "Just for a minute. Sit down." It wasn't until then that she began to feel frightened. "Go on," he said. "Sit down." She lowered herself back slowly into the chair, watching him all the time with those large, bewildered eyes. He had finished the second drink and was staring down into the glass, frowning. So something I mentioned before was the fact that I color-coded the passage, and from what you can see here, I color-coded, for pairs and for direct and indirect characterization. So let's say you want to look for the physical description. I marked a sentence in the text that had physical description. So her skin, for this was her 6-month-old child, had acquired a wonderful translucent quality. The mouth was soft, and the eyes, with their new placid look, seemed larger, darker than before. So we got that sentence right there. So now what we can put for her physical description, of course, is translucent, soft mouth, and placid dark eyes. So as for actions, we can go back in the text, and what I color coded was she took his coat and hung it in the closet. Then she walked over and made the drinks, a strongish one for him, a weak one for herself, and soon she was back again in her chair with the sewing, and he in the other opposite, holding the tall glass with both hands, rocking it so the ice cubes tinkled against the side. So to sum it up, what I can put for actions is that she hung her husband's coat, makes husband's drink, she sews, and she consistently asks her husband if she wants things. Sorry, let me fix that. And for her inner thoughts, I chose the sentence, she loved him for the way he sat loosely in the chair, for the way he came into the door or moved slowly across the room with long strides. She loved the intent, far look in his eyes when they rested on her, the funny shape in the mouth, and especially the way he remained silent about his tiredness, sitting still with himself until the whiskey had taken some of it away. So to summarize that, what I put is that she thinks about how she loves the presence of her husband. As for reactions, I put she moved uneasily in her chair, large eyes watching his face. "But you must eat. I'll fix it anyway, and then you can have it or not, as you like." Okay, so let me go back to this right here. What I put for her reactions is that she is defensive and catering to her husband's well-being. And last but not least, her speech. Well, you see, I've given 2 examples right here. I think it's the same. She said that when a policeman gets to be as senior as you, they keep him walking about on his feet all day long. And also, "Darling," she said, "would you like me to get some cheese? I haven't made any supper since it's Thursday." So based off of this right here, I thought she was compliant and attending to all of her husband's needs, and she was agreeable. So if you want to use this for reference, you can do it. You can look over the text and you can reference everything we do here. So let's move on to direct characterization and indirect characterization. So for direct characterization, I found a piece of evidence in the first page. There was a slow, smiling air about her and about everything she did. The drop of a head as she bent over her sewing was curiously tranquil. So I'm going to put the actual text evidence here, so I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it. Okay, as for indirect characterization, I got, "If you're too tired to eat out," she went on, "it's still not too late. There's plenty of meat and stuff in the freezer, and you can have it right here and not even move out of the chair." Her eyes waited on him for an answer, a smile, a nod, but he made no sign. And we could say this is an indirect characterization because she it is basically implied that she's compliant with her husband just by the things that she does when she consistently asks him when he wants particular things. Alright, awesome. So we got this right here. And lastly, character foils between Mary Maloney and her husband. So we remember, we got the main character and we got the character foil. They're basically polar opposites in different ways. So, of course, based on what we read, we can say that Mary Maloney was compliant, agreeing to all of her husband's thoughts. Not his thoughts, but all of her husband's needs. She was compliant, agreeable. She's smothering and excitable, just because she gets excited pretty often when her husband is home. As for the husband, I put refusing. He is quiet. He is distant and apathetic, or indifferent to everything that goes on around him.